Hi, this is attorney Jamie Miller from Miller and Miller, bringing you another amazing podcast with my partner, Deborah Stencel. Today we're going to talk about kind of off bankruptcy topics about documentaries that are coming this summer, including the big documentary about the 1982 Milwaukee Brewers World Series run. Really exciting, but we're also going to talk about the challenging and hard to understand means test that really comes into play in every bankruptcy that we file. So you'll get the ins and the outs about the means test from myself and attorney Stencel. If you like our podcast, which I know you do, please follow us on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe. It allows us to continue to bring this great free content. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Hi, this is attorney Jamie Miller, and welcome to another edition of the Miller Law Chronicles Podcast with my partner here, Deborah Stencel. How are you, Deborah?
I'm great. How are you doing, sir?
I am good. Thank you so much for joining me today. I want to talk about several different topics, and you indicate that there's I heard about this, a new documentary that's coming out about the 1982 world champion Brewers or almost world champion Brewers?
Almost world champion Brewers.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Well, I remember that very distinctly. I was 12, and it was very exciting at the time. They ended up losing the World Series to the Cardinals, St. Louis. So a new documentary is coming out. I believe it takes them through the playoffs up till the end. And in September, you can see it in the theater, in the Marcus Theaters here in town, which I think is kind of neat.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. And I remember the 1982 Brewers. It was my freshman year in Madison, and I just came into this storm of Milwaukee Brewers. I knew that the Brewers were having a good season, but I remember that fall, coming from Ohio and being in Wisconsin, just the excitement that there was about the Brewers being in the World Series. In addition to that documentary, there is a ton of other amazing documentaries. I think that's been a great thing with all these streaming services, with Netflix, of course, and Prime and Apple. But I had an opportunity to see another great documentary. It's called Skywalkers, Falling in Love. Did I talk to you about that?
No.
I'm sorry, it's called Skywalkers, A Love Story. And it follows two Russian individuals, a guy and a girl, and a woman, and them climbing the tallest buildings in the world and taking poses for social media, at the top of these different skyscrapers. And it's fascinating. It culminates with the climbing of the largest building in the world, which is in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia.
Oh, okay.
And just the photography and the preparation and the illegality of it, I can't recommend it more. The other documentary I would really suggest people watching is about Steph Curry, called Underrated.
Yeah.
And it follows him from high school to Davidson to the Golden State Warriors. And especially after his remarkable play in the Olympics, it's something that is, it's really a must watch. It's really great. Are you a Steph Curry fan?
I am not hugely into professional basketball, but I'm starting to think I need to change that because Matt got so excited. He doesn't like professional basketball. He got so excited about the Olympic Games. And frankly, there are so many great stories coming out of Milwaukee in the last, 5 years? It started to entice me over there. But I have to give equal time to the professional women because that's only fair. So now it's a whole new hobby.
Right. Yeah, I'm still frustrated that the Olympic team didn't include Caitlin Clark. I just don't understand that. She should have been there. But kudos to them for winning the gold, and the men
Mm-hmm.
winning the gold both games against
Mm-hmm.
France. So that was really exciting.
And
We Go ahead.
well, no, I just thought it was a really beautiful moment when Brittany Griner was getting her medal and listening to the anthem, and she, because she went through that stuff in Russia, and she said, my country fought for me, and I'm misquoting her, but basically the whole games were about trying to give back a little, and I thought that was very beautiful.
100%. 100%. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the great thing, whether it's women's basketball or men's basketball, and kind of the difference of why maybe these Olympics were even really more exciting than in past years, I think is because social media
Mm.
is because you have the opportunity to get to know about these athletes and what they're experiencing behind the scenes in the Olympic Village and their relationships with each other and the meals and all that kind of stuff. And I thought this Olympics was really remarkable, and I'm looking forward to LA in 4 years.
I thought it was remarkable as well. I thought it was beautiful and well done, and I had very little to complain about. And it was very frustrating to me to see so many people give up after the opening ceremonies because they didn't like the art of the opening ceremonies, which I thought were gorgeous. I thought that was the best one I've seen in years, including the one in London, which was pretty neat as well.
Yeah, exactly. Were there any sports that you really kind of started watching that you didn't and enjoy that you didn't think you'd enjoy?
Oh, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about breakdancing.
Yeah,
I didn't quite get it. But after watching all of the gymnastics and then switching to breakdancing, I thought, oh, I get it now. It is a sport in a
right,
strange way. No, I mostly focus on the swimming, the track and field, the gymnastics. I did see some really neat handball games,
right.
which,
Yeah, and how is Katie Ledecky that much better? Explain that.
well, much like Michael Phelps, she has a unique set of genes that give her that advantage. It's
Right.
just the way it is. She's just built perfectly to be a swimmer.
See, I get that, but normally, I mean, the records are broken by tenths of seconds,
Hmm.
and she's breaking records by seconds
And leaving
and
half the
beating
field.
people. Yeah, I didn't get that. And the same thing with who's the woman runner? I forget her name. I'm so terrible.
American?
Yeah, American. She was amazing. Anyway,
Anyway.
everyone else out
Yep.
there knows what we're talking
Right,
about.
right.
Anyway, the Olympics were amazing. What I want to talk to you today is when people call our office and they focus and they're asking questions about bankruptcy, one of the first conversations that we're having is about their income level and something that we call the means test. And can you help me and explain to our listeners and viewers a little bit about why the means test is so important and why we as bankruptcy lawyers focus on, a client's income?
Sure. Well, I think at the base of it, it's about fairness. If you have a certain level of income and can afford to pay your bills or part of your bills, maybe you should. But the fact of the matter is, most of the people we talk to aren't in that position. But how do we measure it? The court looks at them from several angles. They look at the snapshot of those 6 months before filing, which is the means test. And then they look at what you can reasonably anticipate to be your income moving forward, right? And then thirdly, if you know of any changes or if you're going to inherit money or something. But the means test is a snapshot of the 6 calendar months before you file your case. And they use that to measure it, the first step to measure whether you can file a Chapter 7. It's not the end of the analysis, it's just part of it. For most people that are filing Chapter 7, they are under the median income for the family size they have in the state that they live. And so it's no big deal. Sometimes people are over, and then we go to a second step of looking at certain deductions. And you get standard deductions for things everybody has: food, clothing, shelter, transportation. And then you can take special deductions if you're unique, like if you have high medical bills, high daycare bills, high insurance costs, your cars are very expensive, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So how is I'm a new client, I'm coming to you, and, I make, $65,000 a year. What's kind of the analysis that you're going to do on that to see if I qualify for like a Chapter 7 bankruptcy?
Well, the first question I would ask is how many people live on that money? Which,
Okay. I'm single,
okay.
let's say.
And no kids?
I don't, in my fictional life here as we're going through this, I have no kids.
Okay.
This is fun.
Well, then I pull out my cheat sheet and I compare your income to the median. And let's assume for a moment 65 is just slightly over. Well,
Okay.
I know from experience, because I don't have my cheat sheet in front of me, I know from
Right.
experience that being slightly over is probably a barrier we can overcome. So then I'm just going to ask a couple more questions. Do you own a house?
I do own a house.
Okay. And you still owe money on it?
And I still owe money on it.
All right.
Yes.
And what do you have for a vehicle?
I have a 2019 Subaru Outback.
Oh,
It's
great.
blue.
Me too. Now, do you have any of the following expenses? Healthcare insurance?
I do.
Term life insurance?
So expensive.
I know.
I don't have term life insurance.
That's okay. Although maybe when we're done fixing this part of your life, we should talk about that and estate planning.
Right.
Anyway.
Exactly.
Term life insurance. Do you have union dues or expenses
I do not.
related to your work, like a uniform or anything like that? Big shoes?
I don't.
Okay. And you said you have no children, so you don't pay for child support or
I don't.
alimony or maintenance for a former spouse. Do you help care for aging or parents or disabled relatives in any way?
I do help. In this, I do help take care of my mom.
Okay.
Who lives down the block.
All right. So you give her money or you just help her with stuff around the house?
I just help her with stuff around the house.
Okay. But occasionally that costs you a little bit, right?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe $50 here, $20 there, that kind of stuff, right?
Yes. Yes.
So after this conversation, assuming that 65 is just slightly over the median for a household of one, I am 99.9% positive this person is going to pass the means test. Having real estate, having a car, having high health insurance costs, helping out a family member, even to that tiny bit, that's all going to go into the calculus and they're fine. Now, if they make 85 and it's $19,000 above the median, then we need to do more math.
Okay. Now, for numbers' sake, because you, on a scale of 1 to 10, I know the means test at a 5. You probably know the means test at a 10 because you're really good using the means test. But the one thing I know is like someone's income is determined for the means test by what their income's been the 6 months prior to filing. So if I'm filing bankruptcy, let's say in August, I'm going back 6 months before. What's that take us to? February, March, April, May, June, July, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to look at that 6 months and figure out what that average income is. Mm-hmm. So if that average income for one person is less than it's $55.09 a month, that person's going to qualify to do a Chapter 7,
right?
Assuming all other things fit within that. But then if I'm above that income level and I don't qualify for a Chapter 7, what happens?
Well, before I say you don't qualify, I want to put our listeners into another mindset. Just because it's a snapshot doesn't mean that it represents what your income has been accurately. So some of us have seasonal bursts of more money. Some people make more money in the winter. Some people make more money in the summer, blah, blah, blah. So you have to take that.
Like teacher.
Right. And people who do lawns, right? You have to take that into account and adjust for that. Some people get one bonus a year and maybe it's in that 6 month period and maybe it's not. And some people know they're going to retire in 3 months. So who cares what they were making in the last 6 months? So you got to look at that as well. And when you're talking to your lawyer, you have to bring those things up as well. All right. Now, what was the question? What happens if they fail?
Yeah. I mean, if I don't qualify for Chapter 7, I'm above the median income level, what happens to my options?
Well, I would have a short discussion about possibility of change in the future, adopting a child, getting married, kids moving out or in, mom moving out or in, retiring, like I said. or things they could change about their lives, or we're thinking about changing. I'm thinking about going back to school. Okay, well, that's going to change the answers. But if everything's staying static and they're failing the means test, then we're looking at a chapter 13. And depending on the number at the end of the means test, they might have a very modest payment in a chapter 13. And this is a thing I have to explain to people a lot. A chapter 13, if you are in it because your income is too high, is just like a chapter 7. You're going to get rid of the same stuff. It's just going to cost you a little bit extra because you can afford a little bit extra. And if that changes over time and you become quote unquote poorer, well, then you can get out of the 13 or you can lower your payment. You are not stuck.
Yeah, I just had a client yesterday and she was above the median income level and didn't qualify for a chapter 7, but was able to qualify for a zero payment chapter 13.
Right.
Talk to me about what that means. What's the translation of that?
So that is an odd little situation that happens on occasion. At the end of the day, when you do a means test, it gives you a number. And that number is supposed to be what a person can afford each month to pay to their unsecured creditors. Well, what are unsecured creditors, Jamie?
Creditors that you haven't pledged any collateral for. So like credit card bills, medical bills, utility bills, payday loans. So these would not include mortgages or car loans or tax debt.
Exactly. So that's what I say when I'm talking to my clients. I say your bills are in 3 piles. There's the first pile, which is mortgages and cars with loans. You pay that pile if you want the thing. If you want to keep your house, you pay your mortgage like normal. If you want to keep your house but you're behind, you pay the arrears through the plan. If you want to keep your car, you pay your car bill. That's pile 1. Pile 2 is stuff you have to pay because the law says you can't have a bankruptcy without paying these. Past due tax debt, child support, maintenance to a former spouse. Must be paid. Pile 3 is unsecured credit cards, medical bills, credit cards, and lots of little junky stuff. My example for 20 some years has been late fees to Blockbuster. Some people don't know what that is anymore. I need a new example, but it's just the junky debt. In a chapter 7, that pile goes away. In a chapter 13, they get anywhere from no money to all the money, depending on your situation. So your client had just enough income to not be eligible for chapter 7, but not enough to be required to pay anything to that pile. So if she had any tax debt, it can be paid, which is a nice thing for people. She maybe got a little bit of a break on her car interest, and she can do the chapter 13 until her situation changes or she finishes it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And for numbers standpoint, just so people know, if you're filing bankruptcy in August of 2024, just to give some insight, and the numbers are higher maybe than you think.
Right.
To qualify for a Chapter 7. And it's based on the state where you live. So for Chapter 7, for an individual, it's $66,106 is gross income over the course of the year. For a chapter set or for a means test number for a family of 2 is $82,346. Family of 3, $101,490, and it kind of goes up from there. So the number is pretty generous, but I guess the takeaway from this conversation, and I never want to say, hey, you got to talk to a lawyer, but if you're clearly under the median income level and you want to try to file bankruptcy on your own, more power to you. Always recommend consulting a lawyer. There's all kinds of pitfalls that could, impact you. But if you're near those higher income levels, you need to hire a lawyer, and there's several reasons why you need to do that. So you may be above the income level, think you can't qualify for a Chapter 7, but if you fill out the means test and you have a competent lawyer that's practiced in that area, you may actually be able to get into a Chapter 7, right, at that time. Next thing is things may change. I mean, your lawyer may tell you, listen, I just had to talk to a client this morning. She's above the median income level, but she's going on disability. She's having surgery and it's going to be off work for 3 months. So that could be an opening to file, We can do pre-bankruptcy planning. What if someone's off by $70 a month and they go out and want to purchase a life insurance policy or do something else to help impact the numbers? A lawyer's going to be really valuable to you. Can you think of any other situations?
Well, they generally adjust the numbers twice a year, usually around May 1st, usually around October 1st. There have been exceptions. Sometimes it's April, sometimes it's November. During COVID, we skipped a few times, but they adjust the numbers and in general, they go up. So if it's September and you're off by $70, I'd wait for the new numbers to come out.
Right. And then you're not going to know that
Right.
really unless you consult the right person to do that. So the means test came into play in way back in 2005 with the bankruptcy, BAP CPA, the changes in the bankruptcy law. And way back when we were really nervous about those changes. But I really don't think the changes impacted people dramatically
No.
when it comes to income. The numbers are relatively generous. But as you said early, it strikes a level of fairness for people. Those that can get rid of their debt can get rid of their debt. Those that can afford to pay back their debt, are put in a position to do that. Is that fair to say?
I do think it's fair to say, and I do think that the numbers are generous. 66,000 for a single person. Under that, they are objectively able to file bankruptcy, Chapter 7, and walk away from the pile of unsecured debt. That's great. That's great.
Yes. Yeah. And any parting thoughts on the means test before we sign off?
No, I said a lot of words today, so I don't have one at the moment. No.
Well, I appreciate that. My parting words on the means test is that I've been practicing bankruptcy law for 30 years. I know what my capabilities are, and I always go to the expert, even within the office, because it can be subjective. So I could look at something and say X, and you could look at something and say Y. And under your scenario, these people, someone could file when I don't think so. It's great that within our office we collaborate on these different things because the law is ever changing. There's different opportunities, and having more than one person look at something is always important. Attorney Campbell in my office yesterday looked at a Chapter 13 that I thought was going to be $1,000 a month payment, and she looked and said, it's going to be $200 a month. I called my client, and they were extraordinarily excited. So that was a good victory. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Watch the documentary, the Scott Walker documentary, and watch the Brewers documentary that's coming out soon. Taylor Swift starts her concerts again in London tonight. We're all excited. Hopefully no more terror theft. She's at Wembley, so that's exciting. Because I love Taylor Swift. Did you know that?
It makes a lot of sense to me.
I know the bridge to Cruel Summer. Do you?
No, I don't. I don't.
Okay.
I've been meaning to get into Taylor Swift, but I haven't gotten there yet.
She's one of my favorites.
Aww.
Anyway, thank you so much. We'll sign off. Have a great week.
You too.
And I'll look forward to talking to you next week, and remind our friends to subscribe and like and do all the great stuff that helps us continue to bring great content. Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.